Welcome to this video where we explore the inspiring theme of faith over fear. Life often presents us with moments of uncertainty, challenges, and doubts that can grip us with fear. But choosing faith over fear means trusting in a greater purpose, finding strength in hope, and believing that brighter days are ahead. It's about stepping forward with confidence, knowing that fear doesn't have to control our path. If this resonates with you and you'd like more uplifting and motivational content like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so you're notified every time we upload. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want us to journey into one of the most transformative choices we can ever make: the decision to live by faith instead of being held hostage by fear. Fear is a reality, no doubt. It knocks on the door of every heart, whispering lies, sowing seeds of doubt, and chaining us to our limitations. But faith, oh faith, is the key that unlocks the chains and throws wide the doors of possibilities. Faith lifts our eyes beyond the seen and invites us to trust in the one who sees all. You see, fear feeds on uncertainty. It thrives in the unknown and flourishes in the gaps of what we cannot control. It magnifies our challenges, exaggerates our weaknesses, and minimizes our potential. Fear whispers, "What if you fail and you're not enough?" But faith speaks a louder truth. Faith declares you can do all things through Him who strengthens you. Faith doesn't ignore the challenges, it overcomes them. When we talk about faith over fear, we are not denying the presence of fear. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the determination to act despite it. Faith is the force that fuels courage. Faith says, yes, I see the storm, but I trust the one who commands the waves. Faith acknowledges the impossibility of the situation, but trusts in the God of the impossible. In life, fear often disguises itself as caution, as logic, even as wisdom. But let me tell you, not every whisper of caution is from wisdom. Sometimes it's fear wearing a mask. Fear says, stay where it's safe. Don't take risks. Don't step out of the boat. But faith calls us to walk on water. Faith calls us to trust that what God has placed within us is enough to meet the challenges before us. Faith reminds us that the one who called us is faithful to equip us. Think about the great figures of history who lived by faith. Each one of them faced circumstances that could have paralyzed them with fear. Moses stood before the Red Sea with an army behind him. Fear said, there's no way out. But faith said, stretch out your hand. David stood before Goliath. Fear said, he's too big to defeat, but faith said, he's too big to miss. And what about Esther, who stood in the gap for her people? Fear told her, this could cost you your life, but faith whispered, you were born for such a time as this. The beauty of faith is that it shifts our focus. Fear focuses on the problem, faith focuses on the promise. Fear magnifies the giants, faith magnifies the God who slays them. Fear asks, what if I fall? Faith replies, what if you fly? Faith changes the conversation. It doesn't deny reality, but chooses to see beyond it, to the reality of God's power, provision, and presence. Now let's talk about what fuels faith. Faith is not some vague hope or blind optimism. True faith is rooted in trust in the character and promises of God. Faith says, I know who He is, and because I know who He is, I can trust what He says. It's not about how strong your faith is, but about how strong the one you place your faith in is. Even faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains because it is placed in the Almighty. Fear, on the other hand, thrives in isolation. It wants to pull you away from your community, from truth, from God. But faith thrives in connection. It grows when we immerse ourselves in the Word of God, when we remind ourselves of His promises, and when we promises, and when we surround ourselves with people who encourage us to trust and believe. Faith grows when we step out, even when our knees are trembling, and take that first step into the unknown. And here's the paradox: the moment we choose faith over fear, fear begins to lose its power. Fear may still be present, but it no longer controls us. It no longer dictates our actions or defines our destiny. When we choose faith, we declare that our circumstances are not the final authority. God is. When we choose faith, we invite God to move in ways that are beyond our comprehension, to work miracles that only He can perform. Let me ask you, what is fear keeping you from today? What dream has fear told you to abandon? What step has fear convinced you not to take? What calling has fear silenced in your life? It's time to confront that fear with the power of faith. It's time to stop giving fear the microphone and start declaring the promises of God. Because here's the truth, fear will always exist where faith is absent, but where faith abides, fear has no room to stay. Living by faith over fear doesn't mean life will be free of challenges. It doesn't mean the storms won't come or that the path will always be clear. But it does mean you'll walk with confidence, knowing you are not alone. Faith reminds us that even when we don't know the Waymaker is with us. Faith reassures us that even when the waters rise, we will not drown. Even when the fire burns, we will not be consumed. Faith is not a passive state. It is an active trust. It is stepping out when the ground beneath you feels unsteady. It is speaking life when everything around you feels barren. It is declaring victory when defeat seems imminent. Faith is action fueled by trust. It is hope anchored in the character of a faithful God. So as we navigate this journey called life, we must make a choice. Fear or faith. One leads to limitations, the other leads to liberation. One chains you to the familiar, the other invites you into the unknown where God's miracles dwell. One focuses on the storm, the other fixes its eyes on the one who calms it. Choose faith. Because faith doesn't just change your perspective, it changes your life. It frees you to dream, to risk, to step out, to trust. Faith doesn't just lead you to overcome fear, it leads you into your God-ordained purpose. And that, my friends, is the kind of life worth living. Fear thrives in uncertainty, feeding on the unknown and gaining its strength from doubt and hesitation. It settles in when we are unsure of what lies ahead, whispering questions that paralyze action. What if it doesn't work out? What if you're not good enough? It draws its power from the ambiguity of life's challenges, preying on our vulnerabilities and magnifying our insecurities. Fear is a natural response, an emotion hardwired into us to protect and preserve. Yet when allowed to dominate, it becomes a barrier, a wall that keeps us from stepping into our destiny. Faith, on the other hand, is a force that operates in the same realm of uncertainty but responds differently. Where fear sees obstacles, faith sees opportunities. Where fear paralyzes, faith empowers. Faith does not eliminate uncertainty, it reframes it. It turns the unknown from a source of dread into a canvas for divine possibilities. Faith steps into the same situations that fear dreads, but carries with it a confidence that transcends the visible and tangible. Faith operates with an assurance that there is more than meets the eye, that what is unseen is just as real and often more powerful than what is seen. The relationship between fear and uncertainty is one of dependency. Fear cannot survive without uncertainty. It feeds on it like a parasite. When faced with a challenge or an unknown situation, fear tends to amplify the worst-case scenarios. It exaggerates risks and minimizes potential rewards. It shifts our focus inward, making us dwell on our inadequacies and limitations. Fear whispers, you can't, you shouldn't, and you'll fail. It seeks to shrink our vision and confine us to what feels safe. Yet, the safety it promises is a false one because it comes at the cost of growth, opportunity, and fulfillment. Faith approaches uncertainty from a different perspective. It does not deny the risks or ignore the difficulties, but chooses to trust that there is a higher purpose and power at work. Faith does not demand complete understanding before taking the first step. It thrives on trust. It acknowledges the fear but refuses to bow to it. Faith reminds us that challenges are not barriers but opportunities for growth, transformation, and revelation. Where fear wants us to retreat, faith calls us forward. It beckons us to walk into the unknown with confidence, knowing that we are not alone and that the one who holds the future also holds our hand. Faith transforms challenges into opportunities because it shifts our focus. Fear fixates on what could go wrong, while faith looks at what could go right. Fear emphasizes what is lacking: resources, skills, time, while faith highlights what is possible through belief and action. When fear tells us to wait until conditions are perfect, faith urges us to act even when the odds are against us. Faith understands that the perfect moment may never come, but that the decision to trust and move forward creates its own momentum. Faith inspires us to see challenges not as the end of the road, but as stepping stones to greater things. Consider the stories of those who overcame insurmountable odds because they chose faith over fear. History and scripture are filled with such examples. Think of David facing Goliath. Fear would have paralyzed him, convincing him that he was too small, too inexperienced, too under-equipped. But David's faith allowed him to see the giant not as an impossible obstacle, but as an opportunity to demonstrate God's power. His faith transformed the battlefield into a platform for victory, turning what others saw as a hopeless situation into a moment of triumph. The story of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt is another testament to faith overcoming fear. Standing at the edge of the Red Sea with an angry army behind them, fear could have easily taken hold. The situation was dire, and the uncertainty of what lay ahead was overwhelming. But Moses chose faith. He stretched out his hand, trusting in the unseen power of God, and the waters parted. That moment could have been one of defeat, but faith transformed it into one of the most iconic victories in history. What fear saw as a dead end, faith turned into a path of deliverance. Faith doesn't eliminate challenges, it gives us the strength to face them. It changes our perception, enabling us to see beyond the immediate difficulties to the possibilities that lie on the other side. Faith empowers us to act, to take the first step even when the entire journey isn't visible. It reminds us that the unknown is not a void to be feared, but a space where God's miracles unfold. Faith moves us from paralysis to progress, from hesitation to action. Fear often thrives in isolation. When we face challenges alone, fear gains a foothold, whispering doubts that grow louder in the absence of encouragement and support. Faith, however, connects us to a greater source of strength. It reminds us that we are part of something bigger, that we are not walking through life alone. Faith draws on community, on relationships, and most importantly, on the divine. It reminds us that we are never abandoned, even in the darkest valleys. It's the assurance of this presence that transforms our mindset, enabling us to press on when fear tells us to stop. One of the most profound aspects of faith is its ability to see purpose in pain and opportunity in adversity. Fear sees a challenge and asks, why me? Faith sees the same challenge and asks, what can I learn? How can this be used for good? This shift in perspective is transformative. It turns setbacks into setups for something greater. It allows us to see trials not as punishments, but as pathways to growth and refinement. Faith gives meaning to the struggle, turning it from something to be avoided into something to be embraced. The process of choosing faith over fear is not always easy. It requires intentionality and discipline. Fear often feels like the natural response, while faith demands effort and commitment. It requires us to silence the voice of fear and amplify the voice of truth. It asks us to step out of our comfort zones and into the unknown, trusting that the journey will be worth it. It challenges us to let go of control and to place our trust in a power greater than ourselves. Faith also transforms our identity. Fear tells us we are defined by our limitations, by our failures and insecurities. Faith, however, reminds us that our identity is not rooted in what we lack, but in who we are. And who we are, whose we are. Faith declares that we are capable, equipped, and purposed. It empowers us to see ourselves not as victims of circumstance, but victors through trust and perseverance. The beauty of faith is that it creates a ripple effect. When we choose faith over fear, we inspire others to do the same. Our courage becomes a beacon of hope for those around us. Our willingness to step into the unknown encourages others to confront their own fears and to trust in the possibilities. Faith is contagious, spreading confidence and hope wherever it takes root. Ultimately, faith over fear is a choice we must make daily. It's not a one-time decision, but a continual process of choosing to trust, to hope, and to act despite the uncertainty. Each day presents new opportunities to lean into faith and to silence the voice of fear. And with each step of faith, we grow stronger, more resilient, and more attuned to the possibilities that lie beyond the challenges. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but it is faith that transforms the landscape of our lives. It allows us to see challenges as opportunities, to embrace the unknown with confidence, and to walk boldly into the future with trust. Faith doesn't just conquer fear, it replaces it with hope, with purpose, and with the assurance that the best is yet to come. Faith is not blind optimism, it is rooted in trust, a trust that transcends circumstances and leans heavily on the reliability of the unseen. It is not a denial of reality, nor is it an escape from the hardships of life. Faith acknowledges the presence of difficulties and challenges, but chooses to anchor itself in something greater than the immediate situation. It is not the naive belief that everything will work out without effort or understanding, but rather a conscious decision to rely on the one who holds all things together, even when the outcome is uncertain. Blind optimism operates in the realm of wishful thinking. It glosses over problems and pretends that they don't exist. It clings to the hope of a favorable outcome without considering the complexities or realities of life. Blind optimism avoids the hard questions and the deep truths that are necessary for genuine growth. It offers a temporary escape but lacks the substance to sustain us when the storms of life become overwhelming. In contrast, faith does not shy away from the storms. It looks them squarely in the eye and says, even here, I will trust. Trust is the foundation of faith. It is not a trust that is earned by perfect circumstances or favorable outcomes, but a trust that is placed in the unwavering character of God. Trust says, I may not understand, but I believe you do. It declares, I may not see the whole picture, but I trust the artist who is painting it. Trust is not contingent upon the absence of doubt. Rather, it exists alongside it, choosing to believe despite unanswered questions. It is a posture of the heart that leans not on its own understanding, but on the wisdom and faithfulness of the Creator. Faith rooted in trust is not passive. It does not simply wait for circumstances to improve or for challenges to disappear. Instead, it moves forward with confidence even when the path is unclear. It is active, dynamic, and transformative. It is the kind of faith that Abraham demonstrated when he left his home, not knowing where he was going, but trusting the God who had called him. It is the faith of Moses who stood before the Red Sea, trusting that the God who led him there would make a way. It is the faith of Mary who accepted the angel's message with the words, "Let it be to me according to your word," even when the implications were beyond her understanding. This kind of faith does not depend on evidence or proof. It is not based on what can be seen or measured, but on what has been revealed. It draws strength from the promises of God, promises that have stood the test of time and have been proven true in the lives of countless generations. Faith believes that the same God who was faithful in the past will be faithful in the present and the future. It clings to His word as a source of hope and direction, trusting that what He has spoken will come to pass, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Faith rooted in trust requires a relationship. It is impossible to trust someone you do not know. This is why faith is deeply personal. It grows as we come to know the one in whom we place our trust. Through prayer, reflection, and the study of His word, we begin to understand His character, His ways, and His heart. We learn that He is not only powerful but also good, not only sovereign but also loving. This knowledge strengthens our trust, giving us the confidence to place our lives in His hands. Trust is not a one-time decision, it is a daily choice. Life is filled with moments that challenge our faith, moments that tempt us to doubt and question. Trust must be renewed each day as we face new uncertainties and obstacles. It is in these moments of testing that our faith grows stronger. Trust is not strengthened in the absence of trials, but in the midst of them. It is when we choose to trust despite the evidence to the contrary that our faith becomes unshakable. Faith rooted in trust also acknowledges its limitations. It does not claim to have all the answers or to understand all the mysteries of life. Instead, it rests in the assurance that God does. It accepts that there are things beyond human comprehension, things that only the Creator can fully understand. This humility is a vital component of trust. It recognizes that we are not in control, but that we are held by the one who is. Trust does not eliminate fear or doubt, but it provides a way through them. When fear whispers, what if trust responds? Even then, I will believe. When doubt asks, how can this be? Trust answers, I don't know. But I know the one who does. Trust is the anchor that holds us steady when the waves of life threaten to overwhelm us. It keeps us grounded, reminding us that our hope is not in our circumstances, but in the one who never changes. Faith rooted in trust is also a source of strength and courage. It empowers us to take risks, to step out in obedience, and to pursue the calling placed on our lives. It gives us the confidence to face challenges head-on, knowing that we are not alone. Trust reminds us that we are supported by a power greater than ourselves, a power that is able to accomplish far more than we could ever imagine. This confidence is not arrogance, but a humble reliance on the one who makes all things possible. This kind of faith also transforms our perspective. It shifts our focus from what is temporary to what is eternal. It helps us to see beyond our immediate circumstances to the bigger picture. Faith reminds us that our lives are part of a larger story, a story written by a God who is working all things together for good. This perspective gives us hope even in the midst of difficulty. It allows us to endure, to persevere, and to find joy even in the most challenging of circumstances. Faith rooted in trust is not a solitary journey. It is strengthened in community. When we surround ourselves with others who share our faith, we are encouraged and inspired. Their stories of trust and perseverance remind us that we are not alone. They provide us with examples of what it looks like to live by faith, and they remind us of the power and faithfulness of God. Community also provides accountability, helping us to stay focused and committed to the path of faith. Ultimately, faith rooted in trust is a gift. It is not something we generate on our own, but something that is given to us by God. It is His Spirit within us that enables us to trust, to believe, and to hope. This gift is not given to us because we are deserving, but because He is gracious. It is a testament to His love and a reminder of His desire for a relationship with us. This gift of faith is both a privilege and a responsibility, calling us to live lives that reflect the trust we have placed in Him. Faith is not blind optimism, it is rooted in trust. It is not a fleeting emotion, but a steadfast commitment. It is not a leap into the dark, but a step into the light. It is not the absence of questions, but the presence of confidence in the one who holds all answers. It is not the absence of challenges, but the assurance that we do not face them alone. Faith rooted in trust is the foundation of a life well lived, a life of purpose, meaning, and hope. It is the anchor for our souls, the source of our strength, and the reason for our hope. Faith liberates us from fear's control and unlocks divine potential, providing a pathway to freedom and fulfillment that transforms how we approach life and its challenges. Fear, by its nature, is a limiting force. It binds, constrains, and dictates behavior by convincing us to avoid risk, hide from uncertainty, and shrink away from the unknown. Fear focuses our attention on our vulnerabilities, amplifies our doubts, and feeds the illusion that safety lies in avoidance. It builds walls around our potential, creating a barrier between who we are and who we are meant to become. Faith, however, operates in direct opposition to fear. Where fear imposes limits, faith expands possibilities. Faith shifts our perspective, empowering us to see beyond the constraints of the present and into the boundless opportunities of the future. It does not deny the presence of fear, but renders it powerless by refocusing our trust away from ourselves and onto something far greater. Faith dismantles fear's stronghold, breaking its grip on our decisions, thoughts, and actions. In this liberation from fear, faith unlocks a divine potential within us, a potential that enables us to live boldly, pursue purposefully, and achieve abundantly. Fear thrives on the perception of inadequacy. It highlights what we lack: resources, skills, knowledge, and convinces us that our insufficiencies are insurmountable obstacles. It magnifies our weaknesses, creating a narrative of failure before we even attempt to move forward. Fear persuades us that the unknown is dangerous, that the untested will lead to ruin, and that stepping outside our comfort zone is an invitation to disaster. By doing so, fear not only immobilizes us, but also keeps us from tapping into the divine strength and potential that resides within each of us. Faith counters this narrative by redirecting our focus. It does not ignore our limitations, but reframes them in light of divine sufficiency. Faith acknowledges our weaknesses, but points to the strength of the one who empowers us. It reminds us that our inadequacies are not barriers, but opportunities for God's power to manifest in our lives. Where fear sees a void, faith sees a canvas for miracles. Faith liberates us from the paralyzing grip of self-reliance and invites us to trust in a strength that far exceeds our own. This shift from self-dependence to divine reliance is the key to unlocking the potential within us. Faith liberates us by changing how we interpret challenges. Fear interprets obstacles as evidence of impending failure, as signals to retreat and avoid. Faith, however, interprets challenges as opportunities for growth, learning, and discovery. It sees difficulties not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones toward greater fulfillment. Faith empowers us to embrace challenges with courage and determination, knowing that they are part of a larger purpose. This mindset shift is transformative, allowing us to approach life with resilience and confidence, even in the face of adversity. The liberation that faith brings is not merely psychological or emotional, it is deeply spiritual. Fear often stems from a sense of separation from others, from purpose, and ultimately from God. It thrives on isolation, convincing us that we are alone in our struggles and that we must navigate life's complexities on our own. Faith, however, reconnects us to our Creator and to the truth that we are never alone. It reminds us that we are deeply loved, intentionally designed, and purposefully placed in this world. This connection to the divine reorients our understanding of who we are and what we are capable of achieving. Faith also liberates us from the fear of failure, one of the most pervasive and paralyzing fears we face. Failure is often viewed as a final verdict, a definitive statement on our worth, and a bodebikis. Fear tells us that failure is to be avoided at all costs, leading us to play it safe, to settle for less, and to avoid taking risks. Faith, however, redefines failure. It sees failure not as an end, but as a necessary part of the journey. Faith teaches us that failure is a tool for refinement, a stepping stone toward success, and an essential component of growth. It gives us the courage to take risks, knowing that even in failure, there is value and purpose. This liberation from fear allows us to dream bigger, aim higher, and pursue our goals with greater determination. Faith frees us from the constraints of fear-driven thinking and opens our minds to possibilities that we might never have considered. It encourages creativity, innovation, and boldness, enabling us to step into uncharted territories with confidence. Faith assures us that we are not limited by our circumstances, our past, or our perceived shortcomings. It reminds us that with God, all things are possible, and that our potential is far greater than we can imagine. As faith liberates us from fear, it also unlocks the divine potential within us. This potential is not merely about achieving personal success or fulfilling our own desires. It is about aligning ourselves with God's purposes and living out the unique calling He has placed on our lives. Divine potential is the capacity to impact the world around us in meaningful and transformative ways. It is the ability to reflect God's love, wisdom, and power in everything we do. Faith is the key that unlocks this potential, allowing us to step into the fullness of who we are created to be. Faith also gives us the courage to confront the fears that have held us back. It enables us to face our insecurities, doubts, and uncertainties with confidence, knowing that we are not defined by them. Faith reminds us that we are more than our fears, that we are capable of overcoming them, and that we have been equipped with everything we need to succeed. This courage is not born out of arrogance, but out of humility and trust in the one who has called us. It is a courage that propels us forward, even when the path ahead is unclear. The unlocking of divine potential through faith is not a solitary experience. It impacts not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. When we live by faith, we inspire others to do the same. Our courage becomes a testimony, our perseverance a source of encouragement, and our victories a demonstration of what is possible through faith. This ripple effect multiplies the impact of our lives, extending the reach of our influence and the scope of our legacy. Faith liberates us from fear's control by shifting our perspective, redefining our understanding of challenges, and reconnecting us to the source of our strength and purpose. It unlocks the divine potential within us, enabling us to live boldly, pursue purposefully, and achieve abundantly. Through faith, we are empowered to rise above the limitations of fear and to embrace the boundless possibilities of a life lived in trust and obedience. The journey of faith is one of continual liberation and discovery, a journey that leads us not only to freedom but also to the fulfillment of our God-given destiny.